Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving deep into J.B. Priestley's classic play, An Inspector Calls. We are going to break down everything you need to know to really get a handle on its powerful, timeless message. So, what's the plan? First, we'll set the scene with the oh-so-perfect Burling family. Then, the mysterious inspector arrives. From there, we'll piece together the tragic chain of events, unpack Priestley's big message, and wrap it all up with some killer tips to help you absolutely smash your analysis. Okay, let's travel back to 1912. We find ourselves in the home of the wealthy Burling family. They're all dressed up, celebrating an engagement between their daughter Sheila and her fiancé Gerald Croft. The whole vibe is just smug satisfaction. They've got it all figured out. Or so they think. And right away, Priestley shows us his genius with some brilliant dramatic irony. When Arthur Burling says the Titanic is unsinkable, everyone in the audience knows it, well, sank. This line is amazing because it immediately paints Burling as arrogant and completely out of touch. It just shatters his credibility before the real story even kicks off. This is such a clever move by Priestley. See, he sets the play in 1912, this bubble of blissful ignorance right before World War I. But he was writing for an audience in 1945 who had just lived through two devastating world wars. That gap is everything. It lets him criticize the selfish, capitalist attitudes of the past from the perspective of a society that learned the hard way about the need for community and social responsibility. So, right into this cozy little bubble of theirs bursts a catalyst for change. A sharp ring of the doorbell cuts through the celebration, and in walks Inspector Goole. And he brings with him some truly shocking news. A young woman has just died by suicide. Now, you have to understand, this inspector isn't your average cop. He's different. He almost seems to operate outside the normal rules. You could say he's more like the play's conscience, showing up to challenge the family's whole every man for himself worldview. And his name, Goole, spelled Goole, it's a pun on the word ghoul, which gives him this eerie, almost supernatural feel. The inspector works his way through the family, one by one, and he reveals that this young woman's death wasn't just some random tragedy. No, it was the final link in a chain of events. A series of selfish, cruel decisions where every single person in that room played a part. And here it is, laid out just like a case file. You see how each link connects? It starts with Arthur Burling firing Eva Smith for having the nerve to ask for a pay raise. Then Sheila, in a moment of petty jealousy, gets her fired from her next job. Gerald has an affair with her and then drops her. Mrs. Burling, blinded by her prejudice, denies her help from a charity. And finally, Eric uses her, gets her pregnant, and steals money to try and cover it up. See? No one person is a single cause, but together, they sealed her fate. And this investigation causes a massive crock to appear right down the middle of the family. You've got the older generation, Arthur and Sybil, who learn absolutely nothing. They refuse to accept any blame and are just relieved when they think the whole thing might be a hoax. But the younger ones, Sheila and Eric, they're horrified. They actually accept their part in it. They feel real guilt and they're changed forever. They represent a glimmer of hope for a better, more compassionate future. So, after turning their world upside down, the inspector vanishes just as mysteriously as he arrived. But before he goes, he leaves them, and us, the audience, with this incredibly powerful and prophetic warning. This speech, this is the absolute core of the entire play. Through the inspector, Priestley is tackling some huge ideas. He's using this one single dinner party to basically put all of society on trial. He's questioning the whole system, a system that lets the rich and powerful get away with exploiting vulnerable people without any consequences. This line right here is the heart and soul of Priestley's socialist message. It's the polar opposite of what Arthur Burling was preaching earlier about every man for himself. The inspector is calling for a society built on community, on compassion, on the idea that we're all connected. Wow, this line is just chilling and so powerful. You have to imagine hearing this in 1945. The audience had just lived through the fire and blood and anguish of two world wars. This wasn't just a metaphor for them, it was real. Priestley is making a direct link between the selfish attitudes of people like the Burlings and the global disasters that followed. It's a stark warning. And just when you think it's over, Priestley hits us with this masterful, cyclical ending. Just as the older Burlings are toasting to getting away with it, the phone rings. A young woman has died. An inspector is on his way. They have to go through it all again. It's this brilliant suggestion that if we, as a society, don't learn this lesson, we're just doomed to repeat our mistakes over and over. Okay, so that's the analysis. But how do you take all of this and actually turn it into top marks on an exam? Let's break down a simple framework that you can use to build the perfect answer every single time. Think of this as your recipe for a perfect analytical point. For any argument you're going to make, you need these 4 ingredients. Pick a character, say Mrs. Burling. Grab a key quote from them, like girls of that class. Connect that to a big theme, in this case, class inequality. And, for the final touch, link it all to the historical context, which here is the super rigid class system of 1912. Boom. That's how you build a powerful, high-scoring point. And look, to really nail this stuff, you can't just passively reread the play. You've got to get active. Make some mind maps to really see all the connections. Use flashcards to drill those key quotes into your brain. See if you can summarize the whole plot in under a minute. It's a great test. But most importantly, practice planning out answers to past exam questions. Trust me, it makes all the difference. Which leaves us with one last big thought. The inspector's call, it wasn't just for the Burlings back in 1912. It wasn't even just for the audience in 1945. Priestley's play is a timeless warning. It poses a question that's just as urgent for us right now. Are we taking responsibility for each other, for the most vulnerable people in our world? The inspector's call really is for all of us.